So today's a very special video. I'm going to make this lovely tray. I've got this lovely love heart vase which I got from Steph from Highland Homemade Crafts. I'll put that link in my description. And she said, "Hey Susie, it's not much, but I hope it makes you smile." Lots of love from Steph. Now, no gift is too small. Absolutely everything is totally 100% appreciated. Now, Steph has sent me some other stuff as well, but I thought I would reveal them in another video so I can give, because you know what, I was absolutely inundated with well wishes and gifts because I was recently, well, a few months ago now, diagnosed with breast cancer. And the support has been absolutely amazing from my friends, my family. So I just thought I would dedicate this video to all you out there who are suffering this horrible disease, and everyone who's, you know, a close family member who's also gone through it with them. You can get through it, you know. I couldn't have got through it without the love and support of my friends and family, you know. It's a difficult time and you do need that extra support. So if anyone you know is suffering from cancer, don't avoid them. Just get in there and say, "Can I help you?" Because a lot of people like me are very proud and they won't necessarily ask for help, but offer the help and tell them that you're genuinely offering that help, you know. So yeah, so I'd like to make this video today dedicated to everyone who's going through it, everyone who's been through it, everyone who's having treatment at this moment in time, you know, and the loved ones that are supporting them. So anyway, on with the video. So what did I show you already? Oh yeah, the tray. That and these stickers, they are absolutely, I love them. They're so positive and I just thought they were absolutely perfect for this tray. And I also got the breast cancer awareness little mould there. I'm not sure because they're quite thin, but I'll probably do them in UV. So I just thought I'd make a little tray up, and if that interests you, stay with me and we'll crack on. So I've mixed up my AquaCast. I don't know how much I'm going to use because I've got a few moulds here. So if you do know your mould volume, I've said this a million times, you can go on the Alichem website and type in your mould volume and it'll give you exactly the powder to water ratio. I tend to wing it. You know, I make it sort of thick. Sometimes I make it thinner, if I'm honest, depending on the mould. But I think this one will be okay with thick. I'd say probably Yorkshire pudding batter thickness. Other people say pancake batter. I guess that's the same, yeah. So I'm going to put a little bit to one side because I'm going to dye this one. Wow, that is thick. Because I'm going to go for pink, obviously. So I've got my Addiction Resin Crete, which I'm going to mix into here to do the pink. Now I don't want it overdosed. Oh, I think I've left the lid off. Yeah, the end had dried up. So I'm just going to put a bit, probably a bit too much, but never mind, because you don't need much of this. The pink one in the resin crate is really potent. Comes out quite a neon, which is great if you want, you know, like if you look there, if you want like a good neon marble. But I don't. I want pink. Just plain old pink. Got my little trusty whiskey here from Temu. I bought them ages ago and you know what? I lost them. And I always complain when I tidy up that I lose things. Well, this time I actually found something. I've only found one. I did have a pack of 3, but never mind. Right, I think that's mixed in. Just trying to get the white from when I pour. So what I'll do now, I'll add my pre-prepared audio, which is basically my cancer story from start to finish. Well, I say start to finish, diagnosis through to where I'm at now, basically. So I'll just carry on. You can basically see what's going to happen. So I'll revert to the audio. Although it's not particularly graphic, there are some references to body parts. Now, there's no pictures or anything. Don't worry about that. I'm not a doctor. You know, I may get little things wrong, but I can only explain it in a way that I understood at the time. I wanted to say that this is not for pity. This is my version of my story and my cancer treatment. Now, I made this video initially as just a bit of a video diary, audio diary, whatever you want to call it. Just for my own records, really, about how I felt, you know. But I thought I'd put it out there because my feeling is if one person watches this video who is about to embark on treatment or in the middle of treatment, it will make me a happy woman if this video makes them feel a little bit better. I mean, everyone's story's different, isn't it? Depending on what you haven't done and like what type of cancer you've got, really. But the general sort of routine is the same. And if it helps anyone to understand what's about to happen to them, then that gives me great comfort. So that's why I want to share this. Yeah, one day I just decided to check my breasts because I did do regularly because I tend to suffer from cysts. Now, the last one I had, I always remember what the consultant said, never ever ignore one. So I just thought, oh, here we go again, another cyst. So I go to see my GP, she examines me, and if she thought anything was sinister, she covered it well. But I guess that's a professional, isn't it? So she said, it possibly feels like a cyst. She said, I'm going to send you to the breast unit. So I didn't really think anything about it because I was quite used to it by this point. So the inevitable breast unit appointment arrived. I didn't really say anything to anyone because it was just the normal. It was just the norm for me, you know. So I takes myself off in the car, just thought, oh, I'll go get this sorted. I'll be out in an hour. So yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I had the mammogram. Nothing was said, nothing, you know, I didn't think anything. So I went back in the waiting area and I was waiting for the ultrasound. And I always remember a young girl come out and she said to her friend who was with her, all clear. And I just thought, oh, bless her. You know, I felt relieved for her at the time. Even though I didn't know her at all, you know, but I just remember thinking, well, we're all here for the same thing, you know. So, yeah, I was really pleased for her. And then I went in for the ultrasound, which I'd done previously 2 or 3 times before. Next news, yes, there is a cyst there, but also underneath, there's something suspicious there. And I'm like, what? She said, yeah, we're going to take a biopsy to be sure. And by this point, I was like in shock because I totally wasn't expecting it, you know. I think that was the worst part in it all. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, previously, you know, I just had them drained and I went home. So they gave me the injection to numb the area and I laid down and she started to take the biopsy. And then it hit me. I was like, oh my God, you know, like I could possibly have cancer here. So the tears just started rolling down my cheeks. I've never seen a nurse move so fast to go and get some tissues, honestly. So, yeah. So, anyway, the biopsy gets taken. And to be honest, It's not even as bad as getting your ears pierced. You just sort of feel a little click inside, but there's no pain whatsoever. That was all done and dusted, and I was sent round to the purple zone. And on the way round, I'd noticed this little garden, and I remember looking out and thinking, do I go out there? But then I thought, well, they're waiting for me. I just felt at the time I wasn't ready to hear this, So I just stood there for a bit. I contemplated messaging someone to come with me because I just wasn't sure what I was feeling at that point. I was just numb. So I just stood there, staring out into this garden and watching people, sitting chatting and stuff. And I just thought, come on, Susie, pull yourself together. You can do this. You can do this. And every time since I've passed that entrance to the garden, even remembering a radiator on the wall, it all comes flooding back. Now, the last time I walked past there, I just remember feeling that dread and that fear coming down on me. Even though by this point, I was already through it. I'd already found out what was happening. So anyway, I pulls myself together and I walks round to the room where I was going to meet the doctor. There was also a nurse in there as well. So again, I was given a hospital gown. The nurse explained that the doctor will be coming in to examine me again. And I thought, how many times do I have to get my boobs out today? So I was just sitting waiting. My brain was all over the place and I was panicking a bit. So anyway, the doctor comes in. He examines me and he went and sat down while I got dressed again. So I sat down with him and he started to tell me basically what he thought. And in one hand, they were basically talking to me like I had cancer. But when I asked any questions, it was like, well, wait for the results. And I was like, yeah, but you're basically telling me I've got cancer. And he said, well, we can't really give you any idea of treatment until we get the results. So that was it. Wait for the results, wait for the results. I had a million questions in my head and it was just like, wait for the results. I'm still reeling at this point, I have to say. My brain is like, oh my God, you've got cancer. Oh my God. I can't even describe fully how I felt. Looking back on it, I do understand it, to be honest. Because if they don't know what type of cancer it is, they don't know how to treat it. So I started to walk down the ward to leave, and a nurse spotted me. And she must have known straight away by the look on my face, probably the Alice Cooper mascara running down my face as well. And she literally just put her arms out to me and she just grabbed me. She said, are you okay? I went, no. She gave me the biggest hug ever and I just sobbed, literally sobbed on her shoulder. It was quite the strange feeling because on one hand I didn't want attention drawn to myself, but on the other I was ever so grateful for just having a hug. I walks back to my car, grabs myself a sugary drink on the way out because I was fully aware, I think at this point, you're in shock. So I sat in my car, it must have been for 15 minutes at the very least. Drank me drink, calmed myself down. Still thinking to myself, like, do I ring someone at this point? And then I remember looking at the parking charges and I thought, I can't leave my car. Even if someone comes to pick me up, I can't leave my car. It'll cost me a fortune. And I found it, looking back, so weird that I would think of something like that in the grand scheme of things, what was going on. And at this point, also totally regretting my decision to go on my own. Like I said previously, 3 or 4 times I'd been, and they were all false alarms, they were just a cyst. And the one time it was bad news, I didn't have anybody with me. So I thought, well, okay, I better get myself home then. I look back now and I think I don't actually remember that drive home, which was pretty bad really. But you know what? All I wanted to do was just get back home and get in the comfort of my own home. At this point, there was all sorts going through my head, But one thing I am grateful for was that cyst. Because literally, if I hadn't have had that cyst, I wouldn't have ever noticed that there was anything underneath for maybe longer time, you know. So I was literally saved by the cyst. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be honest. Those weeks in between, the waiting, just waiting around for an appointment to get your results. Now, it's torture. I think looking back on the whole experience I've had, that was the worst bit. You know you've got cancer, but you don't know what type of cancer. You don't know how far it's spread. You don't know what the hell's going on, basically. Meanwhile, you're thinking, I've got this ticking time bomb inside of me, you know. You just want rid of it. You just want it out before it spreads any further. So anyway, your inevitable appointment comes through. By this point, I'd obviously told my daughter and a few close friends. You do feel very conflicted because you do want to tell people, but you're scared. You're very scared of their reaction. You don't want to ruin their day, as daft as that sounds. You know, you don't want to see your loved ones literally like break down in front of you when you tell them. It's a hard one. Also, you can't face repeating the story over and over again, you know, because you're still dealing with it yourself. So now, on top of that, you're also dealing with the guilt of not telling people that you think you should. You also find yourself thinking of other people, like, oh, I don't want them sitting with all this until I get a clearer picture, you know, on what's going to happen and what cancer you've got. So you can give out facts, you know, that what's going to happen and when. And also, at the end of the day, you've got to look after yourself. You've got to look after your own mental health at this point. You're already dealing with a massive thing. I mean, any friend, any good friend or relative will understand why you didn't tell them, you know. And I mean, yeah, initially some people might think, oh, well, they didn't tell me, you know. Am I not important enough? But try not to think about that, you know. Like I said, you've got to look after yourself. And once you've got it straight in your own head, you know, you can explain to everybody else the whys and wherefores. Then finally, after all the waiting, the day came to see the consultant. My daughter took me over and I went in, very apprehensive, obviously. But that surgeon, she was absolutely brilliant. She explained everything to me. She told me I had a cancer called Metaplastic Carcinoma, which is between 0 and 2% of all known cancers. And I just remember thinking, well, that's just typical for me anyway. Because at this point, you know, my brain was sort of at peace with the thought I had cancer. If you can ever be at peace, but you know what I mean. It was just, both my daughter and myself looked at each other and just thought, yeah, that's about par for the course. Then she told me it was triple negative, and I was like, what on earth is that? She said, basically, it won't respond to any form of chemotherapy or radiotherapy. And at this point, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I asked her, I said, am I going to die here? Is this a real possibility? She said, no. Your option is that you go straight in for surgery sooner rather than later and we get this removed because this particular cancer is quite aggressive. You know, it just needs taken out. So after quite a lengthy discussion, I felt actually really good because she was so confident that she could take it all out. She made me feel 100% better. I mean, even to the point she drew pictures. She gave me a choice of 2 operations, and the pictures she'd drawn was basically what my scars would look like. One looked like something out of Frankenstein, and I was like, no. I mean, technically this was the less traumatic option because it meant that only one boob was being operated on, you know. I mean, it all looked very clever. You know, it involved like removing tissue from under my arm and on my side, still with the blood supply attached, and putting it in my boob, and it meant that I would lose less volume, basically. It just wasn't for me. There was also a slight chance that your nipple could go sort of heading towards your armpit when the skin tightened up where they took the grafts from. So yeah, no. So I opted for the other option, which was basically to remove the tumour from one boob and uplift the other boob to make them match, you know. She warned me that I'd probably drop a cup size, and I was like, oh God, I didn't have that much to start with. Now, with this cancer being so nasty and aggressive, I did ask, was mastectomy, a total mastectomy, an option? Because obviously I was scared that it might come back, you know. And I did think, well, it's not the end of the world, you know, if you get a total mastectomy, because you do have the option of having them reconstructed. She said, not really, no. At this point, we don't have to do anything so drastic. But obviously, it was still in the back of my mind, like, oh my God, this cancer's like nasty, you know, and untreatable with chemo or radiotherapy. So afterwards, I remember thinking, well, I actually said it. I can't believe I said it, but I was like, well, there goes me free Dolly Parton boobs on the NHS. Well, we just all looked at each other and laughed. I don't think that surgeon was quite prepared for me that day. You see, me and my family, we tend to deal with things with humour. It's not demeaning anything that's happening to anyone, or it's not that we don't feel those emotions, but we just deal with it with humour. It's just the way we are. Now, at this point, you are totally aware that your body is going to look totally different. But what I will say is, never be ashamed of being worried how you're going to look afterwards. You know, your brain is saying in one hand, you're having life-saving treatment here, you know, you're going to have cancer removed. But your brain is also saying, yeah, but what am I going to look like? You know, how am I going to feel afterwards with smaller boobs or whatever you get done? Don't worry about that. It's natural. And your surgeon or your consultant will not be shocked at your reaction, because many, many women before you have reacted like that. I came out of there feeling quite positive, and I signed all my consent forms and everything. I got my date, and I just, at that point, had to wait for the operation. One of the things a consultant did say to me was, do not Google it. So what did I do? As soon as I got home, I Googled it. I think because the consultant had instilled such a confidence, you know, that she could remove it all, I felt that I could look at it, even if it was bad. And it was bad. It was very bad. It's very rare and it's very aggressive. But I'm the type of person that likes to know what I'm dealing with. The full facts, warts and all, you know. No, I'm not saying that I researched it fully. I got the facts on the actual cancer, what it was, you know, what it meant. I didn't look any further than that, because I don't think I could have handled, you know, looking forward for treatment. As far as I was concerned, I was going ahead and having an operation to remove it, and then everything else I would just deal with later. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone though. It's down to your choice at the end of the day. Seeing it there in black and white's quite a shock, you know. But I was in a good frame of mind, you know, after seeing the surgeon, so I felt like I could handle it. So previous to the operation, I'd been given this wash stuff, and I had to wash for 5 days before my operation. Now, wash whole body, you know, one day, and then wash your hair as well the next. So I did all that. Well, I ended up looking like something out of like Fraggle Rock, because it was like, obviously to combat infection, MRSA, whichever, but my hair was dry as sticks. I was like, oh my God. And they also give me this like gel stuff. It didn't really smell of anything, and it was a bit like Vaseline actually. And you had to put that up your nose 5 days previous to your operation as well. Well, I have to be honest, it made me quite sniffly. And I was trying to do videos for YouTube, and I was just like all the time, and I was so conscious of it, but I couldn't help it. I actually lost count how many sniffles I edited out at that point. because half the time I didn't even realise I was doing it. But yeah, that was the same thing, sort of to combat any sort of infections and germs and whatnot. So the day of my operation finally came. My daughter picks me up, we gets in the hospital, and I'm walking down the corridor and I thought, my shoes feel a bit loose and a bit flappy. I mean, I always intended on putting my Crocs on. I love me Crocs before anyone says anything. I just wanted comfort. Now, I looked down and I had me old Crocs on that I use for gardening. I'd got myself ready in such a flap that morning, I didn't even realise. They had all mud up the sides and, like, you know, that splatter from when you cut your grass just caked. Oh my God, I could have died when I realised this. So I knew I had to have the isotope injection at 11:30, and I wasn't actually going on the admissions unit access suite at 12:15. So I genuinely thought that I could have the injection and then I could sit with my daughter for a bit. And you know what? My main focus at that time was, well, at least I can wipe my shoes over before I have to go in. Oh no, I had to go straight in. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, the isotope injection is a blue radioactive dye that they inject to track your nodes, just so they can find them in the operation and remove them if need be. I'm like, no, my daughter must have saw the panic on my face, and she's like, it'll be all right, Mum, be all right, Mum. So anyway, I goes in, feeling very upset that I didn't have my daughter with me. But I was okay. As soon as I got in there, the nurses came. There was two, actually. They told me they were looking after me that day. Meanwhile, tucking my feet under the chair as far as I could get them so they wouldn't see these manky gardening shoes. And I was just basically looking at the four walls. I remember looking up at the wall and there was a sign up saying basically remain in your room until you were called to theatre. And I thought, oh my God, am I a prisoner here? But really, you're not. Now, they gave me a hospital gown and it was quite large, to say the least. Some like slipper sock things which you can keep, and also the sexy compression stockings, you know, for like to stop blood clots and that. Oh, and some paper knickers, they were fun. Anyway, bearing in mind, I'm a menopausal woman sitting on a hot ward. They gave me a dressing gown and I needed the loo. So I asked them, could I go to the loo? Because obviously I was still thinking, my God, am I, you know, stuck in here? So yeah, I went to the loo without my dressing gown on. Now, I was tied up really tight at the back. You couldn't see anything. So much so that even the fabric of the gown was like tied in a knot, you know, with the strings. You couldn't even see me paper knickers. Anyway, I go to the loo, comes back, and this woman comes in and she said, could I ask you please, next time you go to the toilet, could you wear your dressing gown because there's men on the ward? And I said, well, you couldn't see anything. I was tied up quite tight. And she said, well, you know, I know, but please, next time will you wear a dressing gown? And I thought, oh my God, like as if I'm going to go flashing my backside around the ward. So when the nurse came back in, I asked who she was because she wore a different tunic. She said, oh, she's the domestic. I couldn't believe it. The nurse also said, well, I tied you up pretty tight. No one was seeing anything. And I thought, I know, because there's no way I would have walked around the ward showing me bum. I mean, if anything, it gave us a bit of a laugh. It broke the day up, I guess. I asked if I could use my phone because I wasn't sure, and they said, yeah, no problem. So I was sitting texting my friends in Discord, actually, and my family and whatnot, just passing the time. Anyway, it all seemed to pass in a blur because once things started happening, it went pretty quick. So the anaesthetist came in. Now, I told him I was very, very wary of the anaesthetic because I don't know what it is. I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but it's that loss of control. It's that being at the total mercy of someone. But he reassured me, and he was really good, actually. And he said 100% he was there for me, regardless of what was going on, in the operation. All he was bothered about was watching me and keeping me alive. So that made me feel 100% better. Then next news, the doctor comes in, he gets his Sharpie marker out. So I'm there in all my glory, sitting on the bed, naked from the waist up, I might add, while he's drawn all these lines, and he's stepping back and looking at his work. And I felt like something like a Picasso in an art gallery. Then he draws on where my nipples are going to end up, and he's standing back and examining, and I'm just thinking, it's just like something out of a comedy sketch, Anyway, I didn't realise how long it took, but it took a while. And the nurse told me after 50 minutes I was sat there, being drawn on with a Sharpie, having my nipples examined, or should I say where they were going to go examined, and checking that they were even. Now bear in mind, he'd been there for 50 minutes, meticulously measuring, making sure everything was absolutely perfect. Then my surgeon walks in. She said, put your arms up. With a blue marker, a few swipes later, changes some of the lines. I couldn't believe it. So before I knew it, they were coming to get me. Now, I'd been given this lockable bag, which basically you put all your possessions in, and then they take it and lock it away in a room or a locker. Now, I'd filled it, and I also put my asthma inhaler in there, and the anaesthetist had already said to me to take a couple of puffs before I went down, if I felt I needed it. And I thought, well, it won't hurt to do that anyway. So I'm just about to go get it out the bag, and this cleaner comes back in, and she picks the bag up, practically runs out the room, and I was like, I didn't even have time to blink, and I was like, excuse me, and she was gone. Literally gone. It was just lucky that I felt okay, and my asthma's pretty much well controlled. They did check with me on the way down, was I okay without it? And I said, yeah, I feel fine. But it was just as well, really, wasn't it? So I gets down there. I was lying there, and the anaesthetist was there again. He knew I was nervous. And he said, look, we're going to put this strip on your head. And I was like, what's that? And he said, oh, it's to monitor how deep you're under. He said, trust me, if there's any inkling that you're coming out of it, we'll put you back under straight away, or top you up or whatever. I can't exactly remember now. So that made me feel better, actually, like another precaution in there. And like I wasn't going to wake up in the middle of the operation. I think by this point it was about 3:30 PM. Next news, they're putting something in my armpit, and I'm like, what on earth? And there was this God almighty loud screeching. It sounded like, when they're on the telly and they're doing the radioactive searches and they're clicking. And I was like, what on earth is that? They said, we're just tracking how far the injection's gone and check that it's gone where it's supposed to. So that was a bit of an eye-opener because it was really loud. So if you have the isotope injection as well, don't worry about it. It's fine. Now, I could see the doors opening and closing into the theatre. Now, bear in mind, there was about 5 people in the room with me. And I looked through the doors and there was even more in theatre. And I thought, my God, there's a lot of people here for one operation. But I don't know if that was normal or not. But I just remember thinking it was strange. So anyway, he tells me he's going to put the anaesthetic in. I remember thinking, oh God, here we go. But to be honest, I didn't have time to panic, because no sooner had he said it, I was out of it. Gone. Apparently I was operated on and I was in recovery by 5 o'clock. Meanwhile, everyone's gone mad. They were like, what's happening? What's happening? She went down at 3:20. My friends and my family were all messaging each other saying, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? Meanwhile, I'm just lying there snoozing. And by this point, it had got to about 7 o'clock. My daughter was at a point where she was like, right, I'm going down there. My niece was trying to constantly ring the ward. Meanwhile, my daughter's getting in a car and she's going to storm down there. Anyway, I think my niece finally got through. And they said, well, she's either in recovery or still in surgery, which didn't really tell them much. Anyway, I comes round. I vaguely remember having a conversation with someone, no idea who I might add, something about something that happened to me in the operation was one in so many hundred. And I just thought, oh my God, what now? So I had no idea what that was, but I was in no fit state at the time to even ask or investigate anything because I was just still out of it. So I just put it in the back of my mind, and to be honest, I forgot about it. Then I thought, well, I'll ask later, because I'm sure if it was anything serious, I would have got to know about it. So anyway, the nurse comes along and she said to me, you just didn't want to wake up. And I was like, what? She said, yeah, you've been out for 2 hours. I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, I don't remember being wheeled back to the ward because I think I was still high as a kite. Sits down and she said, do you want a cup of coffee? I was like, oh, I'd love one, and some toast. And I'm like, yeah, I'll have some toast as well. Well, that was the best coffee and toast I've had in my life, It had proper butter on as well. I was spoilt on the NHS. So I think at this point, all politeness just literally went out the window. Yeah, so she said, do you want some more? And I was like, yeah, please. I couldn't, I was starving at this point. So I just sat there and obviously just waiting to be picked up and whatnot. Now, looking back, I think I was there about an hour and I don't remember it. I just remember talking about me channel and chatting away. I honestly have no idea what I said. But if anything, I guess it made the time pass quicker because I don't remember half of it. Although I do remember thinking people will be worried by this point, so I was sending messages out basically saying I was alive. And apparently they told me later on that I was making no sense whatsoever in some of the messages. It was absolute gibberish. So I think it was about 8:30. They said, oh, your daughter's outside. Because this hospital doesn't have an A&E department, obviously all the doors are locked, so they had to take me down. And on the way down, I was talking about my channel, actually. Yet again, I must have drove them mad with it. Oh my God. I was telling them they should subscribe and everything. And I was talking about like Comic-Cons and stuff I'd been to and people I'd met. I mean, I swear I was still high as a kite, I think. But I was so proud. I'd met all the cast from Supernatural, and I'd met him, and I'd met her. I'd met Jensen Ackles, and I was proper proud of myself. So he gets to the doors, they unlock them. And all my daughter hears, she sees the doors opening. And all she hears is me in a very loud voice shouting, Ewan McGregor! She's like, what the hell, mother? I didn't realise I was shouting. So I gets up out of the chair. I gives the two nurses a cuddle goodbye. And I vaguely remember telling them I was going to send them some biscuits and some hand cream because, I used to work on a ward myself. So I knew they would appreciate the hand cream. And afterwards I thought, oh my God. And I'm tottering along. And my daughter says, Mum, let me get hold of you, man. You're going to go over. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm fine. And yeah, I was fully aware that I probably looked like I'd had a good night down the pub. Now, they'd already warned me daughter that I might look a little bit white, down to the blue injection. What they don't tell you is you look like the Walking Dead. Literally, you're whiter than white. It's a really shocking thing for people to see. I mean, if I'd been any bluer, I would have had a starring role in Avatar, or maybe the Smurfs. But on the drive home, the realisation hit me. I'd been shouting. So, I mean, I don't know, I can't remember, but I just had this horrible feeling. I was like, oh my God. For the last hour, when I've been talking what I thought nice and calmly, I've probably been shouting like a deaf old woman. But you know what? I'm sure they've seen worse. And that was basically it. Then my recovery could begin. I was doing really well, but about a week and a half post-op, I did develop an allergy to the dressings, and they ended up having to come off at one point because I was getting literal blisters. It was the actual like waterproof outer dressing that I reacted to, because when you've had breast surgery, they put these pumps on. Now, they're not invasive, they're not inside your boob or anything. They just sort of sit on the top, on the end, and they create sort of like a negative vacuum to help with the healing, and also to, you know, take away any sort of fluids that might leak. These dressings are sort of part of that, you know. It's like a big surface area. It's all over your boobs and up your chest, to help keep the vacuum for this vacuum pump to work, and also so that you can shower. Yeah, and I remember I was trying to do a video because I totally pushed myself and I shouldn't have, but I was trying to do a video for my channel, and every time I started recording I could hear this noise and it was going in the background, and I thought, probably won't have picked it up. And it was the pump just deciding to suction. And when it came to the live chat in my premiere, I heard it and I was like, oh my God, I'm not pumping, mind, in the background. Well, I was pumping as such with the machine, but nowhere else. So anyway, having a lot of the dressings removed did cause some problems with the vacuum pump, and the pump ended up having to come off anyway. But to be honest, it had done its job by that point anyway, so it was no biggie. But believe me, for the relief of getting them off, it was well worth having to have stand-up washers and festival washers until I could go and get the rest of the dressings off. So anyway, it comes around to the time when I needed to get the rest of the dressings off and the steri strips. Now, for some of you, it will be the first time you've seen your boobs since you had your operation. Now, try and prepare yourself, because obviously you've got scars and they look very red and angry, but they're still fresh, you know. You're only 2 weeks on at this point. And they look far worse when you first see them. I remember thinking, oh my God, I look like something out of Frankenstein. And also, your boobs at this point are still like rock hard. And I remember looking at them and thinking, they look like someone has just got some fake boobs and literally just glued them onto your chest. They're like just sticking out. It upset me a little bit. I was quite shocked. Now, as I mentioned previously, I didn't have much to start with. I was a good, generous C cup, but these looked tiny. And literally, because they were so solid, there was quite a gap between them. So you can imagine it was a bit of a shock, because I could see the top of my stomach. I felt like a sumo wrestler, literally, or like I'd developed man boobs in my sleep. And the fact they were just there, they were just stuck like 2 cherry bakewells on my chest, you know. So obviously the nurse realised I'd got quite a shock, and she just said to me, look, they're still hard. They're still going to be standing up, you know, they're still going to be there. She said, but trust me, over time, they'll soften up and they will sort of droop, I guess, and be more natural. So, yeah, I've come to the conclusion at this point that I'm probably the only woman in the universe who's actually waiting for her boobs to droop. Very strange, but also very true. And they don't tell you about how tired you feel. I mean, the initial euphoria of the operation and everything was over with lasted about 2 days, and then I was just tired, constantly tired. Now, don't worry about this. It's perfectly normal. It's taken your body a huge amount of energy to heal because your body's just gone through a huge trauma, you know. My only advice there would be just go with it. Let your body guide you, and if you need to sleep, then just sleep. Now, 3 weeks on, I'm still having little nana naps in the afternoon. At this point, I'm able to wear my nice soft support bras, and it is absolute bliss. I don't mind telling you that. Now, all you ladies know, that feeling of taking your bra off at the end of the day is heaven. But imagine, little short of literally changing your bra, wearing it for 2 to 3 weeks solid. That's why I described it as absolute bliss, when I could eventually get me nice bra on. And also set them free. I'm pleased to say that they are getting softer, so fingers crossed they will look a little bit more natural in time. Now, be prepared. You will still feel quite numb in places, but you'll also get this weird sensation. I can only describe it as sort of like a prickling effect, like prickly heat, basically. It's not painful as such, but it's really annoying. It's like an itch you can't scratch. You also will get, like, it feels like electric shocks literally shooting through your nipples. Apparently this is normal as well. I think they call them zingers. This is just your nerves repairing themselves, and it's a good thing, even though it doesn't feel very good at the time. Honestly, I swear, it felt like there was literal laser beams coming out, like I would probably, like, shoot someone or something. Rest assured, though, it's not forever. I mean, for me personally, I think it lasted about 3 days on and off, you know, in between the prickly heat and the laser beams. Now, I'm at the stage where my appointment's been cancelled because my results aren't back yet. Obviously, the testing, the nodes and the healthy margin tissue they took out. Originally, I was a little bit frustrated, if I'm honest, but it gave me a little bit more time to wrap my head around things. Now, I felt good enough to research a little bit further, you know, like what to expect in the coming months. Now, avoid, you know, not all of the websites, but some of the websites. Now, I looked on the reputable ones, Breast Cancer Now, Macmillan. It turns out, even though the big nasty's been removed, because of it's metaplastic and triple negative, the cells can travel in the bloodstream, regardless of whether my lymph nodes are clear or not. It's a bit of a scary thought, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying that's all cancers. All I know is that, you know, this applies to mine. And weirdly, even though it's classed as breast cancer, it can settle anywhere in your body. So, you know, I don't know. Settling your toe, it's still classed as breast cancer. How weird is that? So, further reading, it turns out there's a very real chance I'm basically going to have chemo. There's quite a few variations, you know, of chemo. There was 2, I think, I found that I could possibly be having. I think one was called ACT, and I can't remember the name of the other one. So I could quite possibly have either one. And basically, I'll lose my hair with both of them. Now, although it's not very nice, I'm probably going to be bald for Christmas. I'm looking at it as positive because it's preventative at the end of the day. I do not want this cancer back. It's like I've said previously, it's rare and it's aggressive. And if whatever I can do to prevent it coming back, I will do it. And if it's a case of I'm going to lose my hair and I'm going to be bald for a while, it's a small price to pay, really. Now, I got another appointment through. Literally, I was phoned on the Friday. and I'm going in on the Monday. I'm nervous, obviously, but I do feel a little bit forewarned because of the research I did. And like I said, the extra time I had to wrap my head around the possibilities. Now, I'm the type of person that needs to know. I wasn't ready for it previously, but the extra time gave me the courage, basically, to research it, and find out what I'm facing. Now, it's the day before, it's the Sunday. Yeah, I'm scared. It's one thing knowing what you're facing, but it's quite the other to have it actually confirmed, and it makes it real somehow. I mean, of course, I know it's real, but I don't know, just having it confirmed, I guess. But, I'm staying positive, and whatever happens, I'll deal with it, It's just time at the end of the day. So I went to my appointment. I spoke to the surgeon, and she confirmed that she had removed all the cancer. So that was a relief to hear that. And also that it hadn't spread anywhere else, because that was another worry as well. I think that's part of the reason why I was a bit scared, finding that out. So yeah, relief. Apparently I had some precancerous tissue around the tumour, so she had to take a little bit more away to get a healthy margin. Now, at least now I know why my boobs were a lot smaller than I thought they were going to be. So basically now, there's no cancer in me as such, not a tumour anyway. But she said, although it's not very likely, because my lymph nodes were clear, there may still be some, what they call seeds, to anyone else, cells, I guess, that could be floating around in my body. And even though the actual tumour was triple negative, therefore it wouldn't be killed off by chemo, apparently the cells will, because they haven't had time to sort of cluster and form the immunity, I guess, that makes them triple negative. Now, I didn't mention it earlier, but I had these huge, and I mean huge, bruises at the top of my arms on the insides. And at the time, I just thought it was maybe something to do with the isotope injection, and sort of made, a note to myself to ask when I went for the appointment. Well, apparently not. It was a reaction on my skin caused by the drapes that they put over you in surgery. Now I know why I remembered that vague conversation about one in so many hundred that it happened to. Now, apparently, I wasn't that special after all. The same happened to someone else the next week. So they're starting a whole investigation on it, because if it's starting to cause reactions on people, obviously they need to be asking why. So, as I suspected, from a purely preventative angle, I'm going for chemotherapy. And yes, I'm going to lose my hair. But you know what? Like I've said before, it's just time. And I'm alive, I'm grateful to be alive. So, yeah, I'm going to have 6 months of feeling crap, because everybody's different, how they respond to the chemotherapy. My daughter's friend wasn't too bad on it, it just depends person to person. And also what type you have, I guess. Then after that, I'll be having radiotherapy, which is basically more targeted. Now, I'm not a doctor. As I understand it in layman's terms, and this is just my point of view, it's not necessarily fact. From what I understand, it's to sort of sterilise your area. I mean, to stop sort of new cancer cells getting a grip to a certain degree. I don't know how long that lasts for, but that doesn't mean you can fall into a false sense of security. You've always still got to keep checking your breasts, for any changes. Although I will say you will have swelling and lumps in your boobs for quite some time after the operation, so don't confuse that with your cancer coming back. It's perfectly normal. I think I read somewhere that the hard lumps can be in your boob for up to a year, afterwards. At that point, you'll probably know where they are, through self-examination. All I would say is, if anything does change, then make sure you go to the doctor. Don't just think, oh, it's probably just me lumps and bumps. One thing I've found is it gives you a different perspective on life, Don't sweat the small stuff. There's far worse things happening, When you've literally stared possible death in the face and you get through it, all those little niggles in life just seem totally small and insignificant, really. It's given me a totally different mindset, I mean, I was in someone's live premiere a few weeks ago, and John from JD Dubber Storefront Designs said something that really, really resonated with me. He said, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, but you've just got to know to go and switch the light on. And I was like, wow, that really stuck with me. So thank you, John, for that, because it did really help me. So I'm literally at a point now where I'm waiting for my oncology appointment. They've told me possibly a couple of weeks, so we'll see. And it's there where I'll find out what type of chemotherapy I'm having, how long I'm going to have it for, and what the sort of time frame is, whether I'm going to have it weekly, fortnightly, monthly, It's basically the waiting game again, but at least with this waiting, I haven't got it hanging over my head anymore. I've just got to face what's coming, which, in the grand scheme of things, is a small price to pay, I reckon. Now, I've already been looking at wigs. You can get some really beautiful, realistic ones these days. I think those people that just walk around and rock the bald look, fair play to them, they're brave. No, I'm not about that. It's not vanity. It's just I don't want people looking at me and thinking, oh, she got cancer. I just don't want that sort of attention. I want to look as normal as possible. For me personally, it feels like my femininity has already took a huge blow, without having no hair to add to it. I hope that makes sense to people. And my daughter, she said she's going to buy me one of them heads so I can put it on the sideboard, and then when I come in, I can just park my wig. That's just typical of the humour in our family. So wherever you are in your cancer journey, just remember, yes, it's the big C, the big scary cancer. But these days, it's not necessarily a death sentence. So stay positive and fight the big nasty. So onwards and upwards. This is part 1. I'll keep you updated on my next stage of treatment. Thank you for listening, and I hope it does give someone somewhere some hope, comfort and positivity.